My name is Felecia Hatcher. I'm the CEO of Black Ambition, but it was actually founded by Pharrell Williams with the premise of not only funding Black, Latinx, and HBCU students at the highest level, but then connecting them to real mentorship and opportunities. And within the organization, we talk a lot about who are you uninterrupted? And asking that question of our founders, asking that question of our partners. It's the reason why Pharrell decided to not only start this organization, but it's his legacy work moving forward of making sure that entrepreneurship is transformational in our community, and then we're also sharing the codes. And so there's the way that we're told entrepreneurship, success, and opportunity happens for us, and then there's the real way it happens. And oftentimes that's not shared. We're just told as Black entrepreneurs and Latinx entrepreneurs, just work hard and keep your head down every single day. And so by asking the question, who are you uninterrupted, it's different than what do you want to be or what do you want to build or what kind of impact do you want to have. It's giving us permission to be as expansive as possible about what we're building and why we're building it, so that not only do we have financial liberation and economic liberation in our communities, but it's transformed moving forward. That is Black Ambition. And so I'm excited to have this conversation because I'm here with Justin Turk, who is the co-founder of Livegistics, based in Detroit. So we're bringing Miami and Detroit to this stage today. And Justin, I'm going to turn it over to you, but there's a few things that I want to quickly say as I mix up the bio, right? And so Justin is the inaugural $1 million prize winner from Pharrell and Black Ambition, and co-founded a company in Detroit, a startup that I had an affinity with on the construction side, right? Because you're third generation in construction, I second generation in construction, right? Our families are in the construction space. And the way that you guys, and Andre, your co-founder is here as well, the way that you guys decided to innovate in that space, right? When we think about how hard our families work and the fact that they build companies, and I think a lot of conversation around succession planning is happening, especially with just everything that's kind of going on in Black tech and startups of this past week. Succession planning with innovation of what started with your family. Can you start telling your story with that, right? Just kind of the history of what your family has done in Detroit and then kind of leading to the idea of Livegistics.
Well, first, thank you for having us here. You know, this is an amazing experience. I heard a lot of great people talking already. Networking has been tremendous. So Felecia talked about it. I'm third generation entrepreneur in construction. My father, my grandfather at one point owned the largest asphalt paving company in Michigan, but minority-owned asphalt paving company. But when it was time to go to college, they told me stay away from construction. It's a tough market. It's tough margins, just tough in general. So I went into computer science, business system operations, became a developer. Soon after that, I knew the affinity for construction was just part of my bloodline, and I went back to school, got my degree master's degree in construction engineering management, civil engineering, and I worked my way all the way up into a company where I was VP chief estimator of a company we were doing $200 million a year on the construction infrastructure side. So I bring all that back full circle to my upbringing and my family. My parents and my grandfather, I saw that business succeed to the full American dream, and then I saw it go out of business. And I wonder, what was the reason in construction? What is it about this industry? It's a top 3 industry in our country, yet you hear so many horror stories of how people go out of business. And yet the construction industry impacts every single one of our lives. There's not a day that goes by that we don't get impacted by traffic. The cost of our house, the value is impacted by construction. The environmental aspect is impacted by construction. So thinking about all those things and saying that, why is it that this industry is so impactful, but we just haven't introduced technology to it? Why are we not ready to adapt to the 21st century in this manner in an industry that none of us can run away from? That was really the origination of Livegistics, where we said, hey, there's so many ramifications to this industry going digital, and specifically, we're talking about infrastructure. So if you're driving down the road and you're in a highway and you see 2 lanes closed off because they're rebuilding a bridge, or that's infrastructure. If you see a new stadium going up and they're starting on groundbreaking and they're going from the ground below and you don't know what's going on there, that's infrastructure, because those interruptions, those environmental aspects start right there on those initial parts of construction. They don't start in the air on carpentry and electrical. They start there, and that's where we started Livegistics, and that's where we've been able to grow a business.
Great. So one of the things that in some of the early conversations with you during the prize process and the interview, you talked about raising this friends and family round, right?
Yes.
And my husband and I, when we were building Black Tech Week, we always used to have like this joke of our friends and family can only give us a round of applause and like not a round of funding, right? and what do you do when that is your reality, right? Like, how do you start? How do you scale? How do you have the luxury to innovate if that part is missing? But I think the other part of that conversation is, I think sometimes we dismiss that there is actual money in our communities, in our families, but the conversation has to happen. The conversation has to be structured. And there can't just always be this assumption that like Black people are broke, right?
Absolutely.
And so in talking to you in the interview process with Black Ambition, you talked about like how you got your family together for that initial like kind of friends and family round. So can you talk about that conversation? How did you structure that? What worked, what didn't work? Any apprehension that your family had when you were pitching them during Thanksgiving?
I was actually my mother's 70th surprise birthday party.
Oh, that's what you was doing?
Well, they couldn't see her that day, so I had a chance to get them all in the room.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit about that. So you didn't bring the prize. You just said, here.
Yeah, here you go.
Invest.
Yeah,
okay,
surprise.
let's do that. Talk to me about that.
So we were able to raise initially $144,000, friends and family, and we talk about it a lot because a lot of my family knew what I did for a living. We were very close-knit, and I have a large family all over the United States. Engineers, all the way, some of them doctors, whatever it may be, a variety of people. And there's an assumption that we just don't have the capital to invest, right? But I knew I had certain support mechanisms in my family. Now, some of them are a round of applause, absolutely. But some of them have capital, and what we did, we put together a very professional pitch deck. I didn't treat this like they were family. I treated this like they were actual investors, and I put it on the screen in my living room, and I actually went through a pitch deck and really nailed down why I thought the opportunity in construction was tremendous. And I talked about our 5-phase plan. And I said, if you're interested, reach out to me. I'm not going to chase anybody down because I got to do Thanksgiving with you here in a couple months, and I don't want you to think that this was high-pressure sales. It wasn't. So we had a considerable amount of our family who was able to invest on the initial round, and that was where really started from a research perspective, us to start rolling out product and getting the prototype and start to generate revenue.
Can you talk just a little bit more about like how did you structure the conversation? How did you structure really kind of all of it past the initial pitch with your family? So
we initial pitch was just like a pitch deck. Now, mind you, if the pitch deck went up on the screen today, everybody would probably laugh at me and say, what was he doing? But, you progress as a pitch deck. So it was what we would call a presentation and talk about our total addressable market, the value. From there, we were at a point originally where we were still formulating our LLC. And since then, we've been incorporated this last calendar year. But at that moment, our operating agreement was still unwritten. So the people who were going to invest in our business were going to be a part of our original operating agreement. And we went through a very professional way. We had a lawyer. We were LLC, part of out of New York. So our lawyer was out of New York. He reached out to every person individually after they decided they wanted to commit to a round. And we went through all the actual paperwork related to it. Now, we got our operating agreement online, a template. Since then, our lawyer, when we went to another lawyer, he said, of course, you didn't know what you were doing. You needed to revalue this. But at that moment, it made a lot of sense to us. But what we found was that when you treat family members professionally and you do it just like you would in any investor, you don't treat them like an uncle, you don't treat them like a cousin in this manner, then they respect the process. And a lot of them respected the process. And they're obviously they're excited about what we're doing. But from the beginning, we kept everything from communication to, next steps in our organization at a very professional level.
So you guys are in Detroit.
Detroit,
right?
Motor City, yes.
Look at you. Detroit people be so proud.
Well, I saw Denmark earlier. We had our what up though moment, so I know he's out there. But go ahead.
So I feel like before the pandemic, it was still a hard conversation to have with either strategic partners or investors about building outside, building anything outside of the Bay Area or probably even New York, right? Now I feel like people are much more receptive to that, I think just because people have moved over the pandemic and so many different things. Can you talk to us just a little bit about, like, what does it mean to build your startup in Detroit?
I'm born and raised from Detroit, and people ask all the time, well, how's Detroit doing? And you know, Motor City is always known for being innovative. You know, as far as the cars that we all drive, there's so many things that come from the Motor City. So being able to roll that into technology in a area where we're experiencing a renaissance. You know, people know about a bankruptcy that went in Detroit 15 years ago, but what comes on the other side of that bankruptcy is a lot of opportunity for growth, a lot of opportunity for development. There's a tremendous amount of development in our southeastern Michigan. So being able to be in construction, being able to be in technology in two areas that are disruptors in Michigan and specifically southeastern Michigan is really exciting, and I think it's proud. And I think when we go other places, we get a warm welcome as if, wow, you're doing it in Detroit. Like when we went to the Black Ambition program, the Detroit story is one that people get excited about nationally, and I think a lot of people want to see Detroit win, and I'm really excited about that because things have come a long way, and we're being very progressive.
I don't like to see Detroit win when they're playing the Miami Heat. That's a personal thing.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about your process through the Black Ambition Prize, right? Because our applications are open right now. Shameless plug, right? They close June 20th. And you said something really interesting in a conversation about when you applied. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Okay, I want to put a disclaimer out, but it actually happened, I think, several months ago. But we talked about me and Andre, the CFO, and Andre Davis, our CFO and co-founder, somebody I've known since 5 years old. So we're being able to build a business in this manner is a little unique for us because of our specific expertise. It matches right to what we're doing. But it was about 8 hours left before the deadline for Black Ambition. And we were in the office, we said, we need to fill this out. Because sometimes you see win $1 million and you're like, is it a scratch-off lottery ticket? What am I doing? But when we realized this was real, we sat down and we actually filled out the application. Now, thankfully, when I say fill out the application, we did not come and just throw a bunch of things on paper and put it on the website and say, here you go. Before that, we had actually went through a boot camp, and it's actually here in the Bay Area from 2 Michigan grads, Transparent Collective. And being able to get involved in some of these different workshops and understand what our value proposition was, our go-to-market strategy, refine our pitch deck, really helped us apply for Black Ambition. It really refined our statement. And you talk about people are accepting of Detroit, companies from Detroit now, and you're able to go a lot of places in investment. The pandemic was a big part of that because before the pandemic, we would have been in a workshop where we had to fly to San Francisco, stay there for X amount of weeks, fly back and forth. And what does that do to filtering the amount of people to come to it? But because things were going remote, we were able to do a lot more, get exposed to a lot more different things that we just simply wouldn't have gotten into from the city of Detroit. And because of that, although we hit the button with 45 minutes left, we felt really good about what we were submitting because the information had already been refined by a lot of different experts, a lot of advisors ahead of time. And that's how we got applied to Black Ambition.
Anybody applying, please don't wait till the last minute. But
do not.
If you do, like, clearly, right? And
yeah.
so I when you said that, I kind of cringed because I was like, don't wait till the last minute. But then also, it's like if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? And you're really able to capitalize on opportunities when they come because you have done the preparation work, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about like that this past year, right? And so you applied. We had about close to 2,000 applicants. We had almost 300 semifinalists, and then of those 300 semifinalists, we funded 34 companies in tech, in healthcare, consumer goods, and then this year we've added media and entertainment as well as Web 3.0 in the areas that we invest. But talk to us a little bit about like the 5-month mentorship, what has happened for you guys since winning the prize at $1 million. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I mean, first, when I get up here and I talk about Black Ambition, I want to make sure I'm clear with people who are looking for capital and looking to invest. or companies that are looking for investment. I've been on the other side of the equation where you say, is it really all that it's cracked up to be? And you start to think about that. And I'm telling you, I'm the inaugural winner. And us at Livegistics, we're extremely grateful, not just for the $1 million. And I said this, if we never got $1 million, I still would have paid for the relationships and the actual experience I got through Black Ambition. Because I make it very clear, Black Ambition, there's an organization you can go get a check from. If you search around, you can get grants, you can do a lot of things. But this is not about a check. This is about changing a culture. This is about sharing the codes, which Pharrell always says. I'm still very involved in the Black Ambition program. Me and Andre, our team, we engage with them on a regular basis. A couple of companies from our C round are from Black Ambition relationships, from our mentors. So it's not as if when you apply for this program, you're just applying to win money. You are applying to be part of an organization that is committed to changing the narrative, to educating, to providing access to not just capital, but people who understand what you're going through right now. And it is a network, a strong bounded network that we talk about all the time. What our life would have been like without Black Ambition, I don't want to know, because it has been a tremendous add for us to this day. We obviously still celebrate it. We closed the C round in March. We closed a $6 million C round. And thank you. I appreciate it. We just came from Austin, Texas yesterday, and one of our investors is Dan Gilbert's group out of Detroit. It's the only Detroit company out of our fund, Detroit Venture Partners. They took us down to Austin, Texas for a CXO event. And when we say we closed a $6 million C round, the people there are impressed. And I'm like, wow, I guess that was impressive. I'm telling you, that doesn't happen without us winning Black Ambition. Because the stories that we were telling before Black Ambition are the same stories after, but that exposure, that notoriety, that boost to say, hey, this is legitimate. It was trendsetter, and it changed the way people looked at what we were doing. And I'm talking about CNN wrote articles, Billboard. We were in every publication about winning that award, and people started to pay attention because of the notoriety. And let's be honest, investors like to invest in what they see trends in. And I'm not saying that you want to be trendy or anything like that, but the importance is that your voice needs to be heard. And Black Ambition made sure that our voice was heard. We didn't change our mission. We didn't change our roadmap. We didn't change who we were selling to. It just got amplified to a tremendous level through Black Ambition.
Any advice for the founders that are in the audience on just like how to raise like their social capital, right? Because I think oftentimes when we think about diverse entrepreneurs, right, a lot of them are just building really amazing companies and have their head down. And what I've learned being in this role in the past year, and I'm sure what you guys have experienced being like our top prize winner, is like not only just like networks, right, but like how to cultivate those relationships. And nothing happens without relationships. And I think for a lot of us, I can speak personally, that was a long lesson to learn. But when I learned that, like things really took off, right? And so there's the need for mentorships, but then there's like, how do you find the right people? Where do you go? Where does the money really reside, right? Like, who are those people? But then like, also, how do you actually cultivate those relationships so that it's not just transactional? I know I just asked you like 5 questions in one. Pick one. No. But like, just let's talk about cultivating relationships a little bit more and a little bit deeper than I think it is just like building your network or going on LinkedIn, because I think there's so many different layers to that, and I feel like you guys have learned a lot in this past year around that.
A tremendous amount. It is a relationship business. I'll first and foremost, we got to say that. I'll say I have to bring it back to Black Ambition. Us being able to not raise money when we needed it was really important. We won that award. And now we took a step back and we started to build relationships with a lot of different investment companies, because we didn't want just their dollars. We wanted their strategic planning. We wanted their what their insights were. What was the advantage of dealing with this one company versus this other company? And I can promise you, and Andre, kudos to our CFO, we leveraged a lot of that experience, and what we formed is what our cap table looks like right now from our C round. Those relationships were built over several months. We got a chance to meet people, and we got a chance to talk to them. We kept them engaged on what we were doing. We started to have periodic conversations about the next steps, and we kept this momentum going. And in a matter of 2 weeks, we were able to get 3 offer letters, 3 offer sheets, term sheets. And that didn't start because we decided to do it, 1 month in November. Literally, that was a several-month process built on relationships. And we learned a lot of that because we were sitting in Black Ambition. We had mentors who brought exceptional people to the room and got a chance to just pour into us and talk about what it was like on this side of the table, what it was like on this side of the equation when you're trying to be a startup, when you're trying to be an investor. And it's funny, one of those people actually who taught us a lot about how you leverage what you're doing against investors ended up being one of the firms that led our leader in our seed round. So when we were starting to use the tools that they taught us in there, he laughed and said, "I taught you that. That's good." Because what they learned was that when you start to understand relationships, when you understand what everybody's looking for, those key performance indicators, the wants on both sides of the equation, you want to put yourself in the best position possible. And I'm talking to my startups right now, the people who are here. This is your baby. This is the business that you dreamed about. This is everything you want. And I'm not trying to, dismiss investors, but investors, their role is investing. They do it in more than one company. So nobody knows more about your business than you, number one. We learned that. But you can be grateful, don't be humble. That's something I learned from Felecia. Do not think this is some type of charity. This is your opportunity to win. And when you go in there and you're able to use that as leverage on when you're negotiating your terms or building relationships for whatever round you're in, then you put yourself in the best position possible for growth.
I love it. So once you receive funding, right, and you guys have some really impressive funds that are on like your cap table, like talk to us about like this new leadership role that you have to step into as a founder once you have the funding to have kind of like this runway to be able to build. Because I think we don't think about that enough, right? I think there's this big race to like raising the money, but then like the entrepreneur itself has to become more of a CEO, managing a team, growing a team, cultivating relationships, looking at like the road ahead. So talk to us a little bit about like you and Andre, like what different type of entrepreneur did you have to become in like that next stage of growth for your company?
Well, early on when you're a startup and you're just trying to figure out everything, you're in your business and your head's down and you're doing everything you can to get exposure and get people to understand what you're doing, whether it be exposure through revenue, whether it be exposure through user bases, whether it be exposure through social media, whatever it may be, that's your focus. But, people invest in teams, obviously. But when you get to that step where you've got that capital and you're starting to build a team, we're a team of four the start of 2021. Right now we're a team of 28. So the shift happened where as CEO, as leaders, we have to work on the business a lot, not just in the business. Meaning that we have to take a step back and make sure that first and foremost, we're in the people business. Even though it's tech, our most important asset is people. And making sure that the culture that we want to use, especially in a remote environment, is being projected. And that's international because we've got people who work on as a team member on Livegistics who are in Ukraine. We had to support a developer who was going through the situation there recently. We've got people on both sides of the coast in the United States. How do you do that when you're not a brand that everybody that knows, but you will have a certain culture that you want to exude all the time? And you have to be intentional, first and foremost. I learned that from my previous post. I worked in a space where it was minority owned, and I looked up and I said, well, where are all the minorities? And the problem is that a lot of times you can do a lot of things and work hard, but if you're not intentional about your mission, if you're not intentional about the way that you know that you want to go to market, and ours is we're very diverse, we're very inclusive, open, honest communication, leadership. There's no hidden agenda. These are things we talk about on a regular basis, and we build them into programs when our team gets together. And this is what I mean by we have to work a lot on our business. When we're meeting with our investors, we do periodic things where we talk about each one of our investors has a specific focus that we saw as how they can help our business. And there wasn't much overlap. We really wanted them to focus on certain aspects because we felt like that's what they brought to the table. So we just started developing task force where we had our actual investors and their leaders on that round lead those task force, and be able to use those strategic assets that they told us about when they invested into us. Now let's put those things in motion. So now we're looking at it from, not just what can I do today, but what does the roadmap look like for Livegistics over the next several months, the next several years, and we start to build that momentum with our team. It starts to go into our marketing. It goes into our sales funnel as well, and that's where we see, obviously, opportunity to grow, and everybody understands that we're on the same page when we're growing as a team.
Nice, I love it. So in building Black Ambition, right, one of the things that we looked at was, like, how do we support founders, like, holistically, right, like the entire entrepreneur. And so, and a lot of that has to deal with just like mindset. I think there's a lot of areas in which you get like the tool set, you get the skill set, but it's that mindset that really makes like successful entrepreneurs that can kind of weather the storm. But there's a lot of weathering the storm as for Black and Latinx founders, right? The amount of no's, and like I'm looking at, you guys have increased to 13 landfills across 5 states. You've hired 28 employees. You've just closed your seed round. My question to you, because like we added therapists, right, to Black Ambition through the Invoke program, so that like our founders actually get the support that they need going through all of this. And I don't know how you build a program to support entrepreneurs moving forward if you're not centering their mental health, especially for Black and Latinx founders, where you're actually irresponsible if you're not baking that into your program. And so in the vein of always asking 5 questions in one, everyone talks about Sierra's prayer. What is like your founder prayer? What is the thing that you say to yourself when you've gotten the no's, like when you're trying to motivate your teams, when like business or life has just kind of punched you in the gut? Like what are the things that you're saying to yourself to keep going through all of this? Because it's definitely not easy. Even when Pharrell invests in you, it's not easy, right?
Correct.
It creates more problems sometimes, good problems sometimes, but like it definitely, like, how do you keep going? What do you say to yourself?
Wow, that's a great question. I say I'm a man of faith, and I know we've been very fortunate along the way to get certain roadblocks removed and getting certain opportunities in front of us. At the same time, our team works extremely hard, and one thing we talk about as a team is that we have to be unreasonable. We have to think that some of the things that we're trying to go after are unreasonable, because if they're not, then everybody's doing it, right? And as a minority-owned business in construction and in technology, you have to understand the reality is that the market is not catered towards you, right? So you're gonna have to be exceptional, and we accept that. We accept that in order for us to succeed, we may have to be so much better than anybody else that has to be in that space. And guess what? Our goal is to be so much better than anybody that enters in that space. So that aligns. And I think sometimes we want to make sure that we don't get into this mentality of, woe is me, why is this happening? I remember joining when we first got in Black Ambition. I remember one of our advisors, and I asked them about the psychological part of being told no. Because sometimes when you're told no, do you think it's because you're Black? Do you think it's because you're a Black male? And you know what he told me? He said, who cares? He said, that doesn't matter, because your job is not to wonder why they said no. Your job is to find out people who are going to say yes. So it just becomes a number game at that point. And when you look at it from that perspective, that's the way we look at our business. Who cares? It doesn't care who says no. We go at it with a tenacity from the top down. Me and Andre, like I said, I've known him since 5 years old. We played football together in college. We're very competitive, and we bring that mentality to our organization, to where the people that work in the organization have to be full of enthusiasm. They understand our culture. They have to be self-motivated. And then, obviously, as a company of 30, when you're at that stage, we see this is a $12 billion total addressable market, but we see this opportunity not for just us to win, not for just our investors to win. This is opportunity for a lot of people in our organization to win, and there's extreme diversity in our group. So being able to say that when we win, we all win, not just us, but our families win. We hired a VP of product last week before we came, and him and his fiance came up for his first few days. He lives in Chicago. Now, he was in meetings with us all week, but it was important for her to come up and know what he was investing in. So we made sure that we made accommodations with what she would be doing while he was at work. And when they left, she felt like this was the perfect place for them to work, because not only did they care about what you're doing today, they were saying that, hey, if your fiance, your husband comes here and he does what he's supposed to do, this opportunity is exceptional not only for him, not only for me, but for you and your family. And that's what we're preaching at Livegistics, that we're all in this together, but we're going to work like crazy because we're going to be told no, but who cares? Because I don't.
I love it. Somebody gonna say yes.
Somebody going to say yes.
$6 million in
Yes,
yes, right?
yes. Yeah.
Talk to us about like your focus on sustainability. I think there's a lot of conversation around sustainability now. I don't know, and then I'm starting to see more Black founders and Latinx founders like start to enter this space, right? You have climate change gentrification that is happening in communities and so many different things. So talk to us a little bit about like why the focus on sustainability as a part of like really kind of the mission and business model of Livegistics.
So I'm going to answer that in reverse order because it ties to our business model. So our biggest customer is Waste Management, formerly Waste Management, known as WM. And we have a significant amount of interest and focus in the environmental space. And we started there because it's a pretty intricate part of construction. It's complicated. There's a lot of lawsuits, litigations. It's got a lot of environmental impact. Last week I was at Waste Expo in Las Vegas. And one of the things that we're talking about and we're discovering is that a lot of these companies know that the elephant is in the room. They just don't know what to do with it yet. And it's the sustainability portion where landfills are not sustainable. Like, first and foremost, landfills are not sustainable. If you go to Canada, they won't even let you open a landfill anymore. In fact, Toronto hauls all of their waste into the United States. I don't know how many people know that. So when you think at it from that model, we have to have the mindset that the things that are going to our landfill are going to turn into repurposed materials, recyclables. We're starting a project in Elizabethtown with Ford Motor Company, and the builder is Barton Mallow, who's building it. It's the largest EV facility that Ford's ever built. I think it's a 6x6, 6 miles by 6 miles. And their big mission is about sustainability. And we're going in as partners on construction, but converting that message to sustainability where not just about what you're disposing of, it's about what are you repurposing, what are you recycling, because that facility is built to be zero waste. So the entire industry is saying we have to be zero waste. So our mission here is to say we're obviously going to be a part of your process to the environmental dump that you're using right now, but let's talk about life after the landfill, because that is a real thing, and a lot of people know that it's a void that they aren't really aware of, and they're making assumptions on how to manage that material, what to do with it later. But we're in that space now because we've got visibility to the job site, the owner, the people that are transporting it. So our conversation, our tech, is be able to impact them early on to remove it from the landfill and then repurpose it in other areas. And I think that's a space that a lot of people have to think about, because our regulations in our country are changing to where we just can't produce the same amount of waste as we did before. And ironically, since we've been home, we've produced a tremendous lot more waste. I think waste is up per residential house about 25 to 28%. And that's because we're at home more. But that material can't go to landfills. It's got to be repurposed. So we've got to start having these conversations now so that by 2050, we've got actual processes in place to get rid of the elephant in the room and make a more peaceful, more environmentally friendly environment for life for our kids and those beyond us.
We don't look at it as the pie, right? I think a lot of people talk about the pie and getting your slice of the pie. Like at Black Ambition, we look at it as a garden, right? There is no crabs in the barrel. All of us can win, especially when we share the codes, like Justin has shared here today. And so when we eat from the garden and we eat the fruit in the garden and our consumption produces more fruit because it eats from the seeds. And seeds that are planted over and over and over again allows us to all live in a very expansive and abundant life. And so that's what we're building with Black Ambition. That is what Livegistics is building in Detroit and across the United States and the globe. And I look forward to celebrating with y'all in 10 years. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you.